That's why we're here. That's why we're here tonight. See, we all have issues. Every one of us has issues. Everybody needs some kind of recovery. There is nothing in life, no place in life where we can go where we will not find people who need recovery. It's true. And it's actually called, the Bible calls it sanctification. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. It's a Christian buzzword. I like to call it a buzzword. There's actually three of them. There's justification, sanctification, and there's glorification. And the middle one is sanctification, and that's where God comes into our lives after we have been saved by accepting what Jesus Christ did on the cross. And He sends His Holy Spirit to come live inside of each one of us. And the Spirit begins the process of changing us and making us just like Christ. And that's called sanctification. That process goes on all of our lives. He takes us where He finds us. God is not content to leave us where He finds us. He is in the process of changing us. He wants to change us and make us just like Himself. That's called sanctification. And Celebrate Recovery is all about sanctification. That's what we are doing here in Celebrate Recovery. We're dealing with our issues. Because, see, we've all been hurt, I should say, and we've all hurt everybody else, or other people. And as a result, we have developed all kinds of dysfunctions, all kinds of hurts, and all kinds of habits, and all kinds of hang-ups, as we call them in Celebrate Recovery. And the Celebrate Recovery program is designed to help us deal with those dysfunctional issues. And that's what we're going to be facing this coming year. We're going to be facing the prospect of having God come into our lives and change us and make us just like Himself. Now, what I'd like to do now is give you a little bit of a program outline of what to expect in Celebrate Recovery. We have weekly meetings every week on Friday nights. And they're broken down into 2 one-hour segments. First meeting is called the General Meeting, and that's the meeting that you're in tonight. And it runs from 7 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Second meeting is the time when we meet in our small groups. It follows our general meeting, and we have small group time. They are gender sensitive, meaning we have men's groups and women's groups, and they're broken down by specific issues. And that runs from 8 until 9 o'clock. Now, if you want to get here a little earlier, you can have a meal. We're offering a meal from 6 to 7. It's right across the hall in the multipurpose room. Now, our bill of fare is pretty simple, but the food is very good. And we charge a nominal amount just to cover our costs. We're not interested in making any money on this, but we would like to cover our costs. So we would encourage you to come and just have a meal with us from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and then you can come into our general meeting. Now, when we start the general meeting at 7 o'clock, we always start with praise and worship. And you saw some examples of that tonight. Praise and worship team led us in praise and worship. Good? Very good. Now, praise and worship usually lasts somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes in duration. And this is a very, very extremely important part of our program. I can't emphasize it enough. A lot of people think it's just fluff. A lot of people elect not to come and participate in praise and worship. And that is a big mistake. And the reason I say that is because praise and worship helps provide transition. You see, when we come into these meetings, we're carrying all kinds of baggage, all kinds of stuff from the activities of the day and from what goes on in our family and relationships and so forth. And we're all preoccupied with all those kinds of things. And then we come into this meeting, and we're going to be focusing on what's going on here in recovery. And specifically, we're going to be focusing on the Lord. And we want to see what He has for us. But if we are distracted by all the day's activities, it makes it very difficult. And so praise and worship time helps provide that transition. It allows us to really start focusing on God. And what happens when we do that, it's really interesting, when we start focusing on the Lord through praise and through worship, all the stuff that we're bringing into this meeting just seems to kind of fade away, at least for the duration of the meeting that we have here. And it allows us then to see what God is really trying to say. See, God speaks in a soft voice. I don't know if you know that. But the Bible teaches He speaks in a soft voice. He doesn't yell at us. He doesn't want to compete with all the distractions in our lives. He wants us to empty out. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." because I have something I want to say to you, he says, and you have to be quiet so you can hear me. Praise and worship gives us that opportunity to quiet our spirits, focus on God, and then hear what he's got to say. All right, so don't miss praise and worship. Don't do that. All right, following the praise and worship time, we have either a teaching time or a testimony. Now, in Celebrate Recovery, we have 25 lessons that we go throughout the year. And the way it's organized, we have a new lesson that's taught every 2 weeks. So every other week we have a new lesson. So you can see, since there's 25 lessons, it's going to take the better part of a year to cover the entire program. Now, these lessons are the heart and soul of Celebrate Recovery. They are the core of Celebrate Recovery, because they contain all the information, and I mean all the information that we need to recover from our hurts and our habits and our hang-ups. These lessons are based on the Scriptures, and the Scriptures are complete. God has given us the Bible. He's given us everything we need for life, and it's complete. There's nothing that's left out. And so our program is based on these Scriptures. Now, specifically, they are based on the Beatitudes, which come from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard of the Sermon on the Mount, but for those of you who haven't, it's considered to be the greatest sermon ever preached. See, when Jesus was walking along the shores of the Sea of Galilee, he was followed by this huge crowd, as was typically the case in that stage of his ministry. And he sees this small hill off in the distance, so he ascends the hill, sits down, everybody gathers around. It's estimated there was probably about 10,000 people there. Isn't that amazing? And they didn't have microphones in those days, so it's got to be a God thing that everybody could hear this sermon. But he preaches this sermon. And he starts off by giving us the 8 Beatitudes. Now, beatitude means to be happy. That's the literal translation from the Greek word. Now, Jesus did a very unique thing. He took everything that the Bible had to say about healing. All of life's issues, all of life's problems. The Bible talks about all those things. And what he did is he consolidated all that information and he expressed it as the Beatitudes. So the Beatitudes really are steps to healing, is what they are. And they are the foundation for our program. We have 8 principles in Celebrate Recovery that are based on these 8 Beatitudes. Now, everybody should have a bulletin, and I'd like you to open up your bulletin, if you will. And inside you'll see a section that's entitled Road to Recovery. Everybody see that? Road to Recovery. These are the principles of Celebrate Recovery. We use acrostics a great deal in Celebrate Recovery, and you notice on the left-hand side at the top of the page there, it starts with the letter R. See that? It goes all the way down to Y. It spells the word recovery. And the first principle reads, realize I am not God. I admit I am powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. That's our first principle. This is called the denial principle. This is the place where we come to grips with our issues. We finally say, I have issues. I've got problems. I'm finally willing to admit it. And to do otherwise is called denial. And not only do I have issues, but I am powerless. I don't have the resolve within myself to deal with them effectively. And so as a result, my life's a mess. And that's what this principle is all about. Now, the beatitude that it's built on, notice it's written there. It says, happy are those who know they are spiritually poor. That's the first beatitude. And what Jesus is talking about here, he's telling us that spiritually poor people are morally bankrupt. See, we have no resources within ourselves to deal with our issues. Jesus tells us that. That is the starting place of healing. See, you can't fix something unless you know it's broken. And that's what Jesus is telling us here. So you can see that every principle thereafter is shown on this page, and it is supported by a corresponding beatitude. And as we go through the program throughout the year, we will be covering all these principles, and we will be talking about how to implement them into our lives. Okay. Now, in between our teaching times, remember I said we have a teaching time every 2 weeks. We have a testimony inserted in between those teaching weeks. For example, next week, we are going to start with our first lesson. It's called Denial, interestingly enough. And then the following week after that, we're going to have a testimony. And then the week after that, we'll have another lesson. It's called Powerless, still dealing with the first principle. And then the following week after that, we'll have another testimony. And we're going to follow this system throughout the year. Lesson, testimony, lesson, testimony. If you want a schedule of all of our meetings, you could pick one up in the information table in the lobby. We have them laid out for the entire year. We have actually a meeting every week of the year except the last 2 weeks of the year. Now on testimony nights, let's talk about that for a second. We follow the same format that we do on our teaching nights. And that means we start with praise and worship. See, we always start with praise and worship. That's a standard feature. And then following praise and worship time, instead of listening to me talk or someone else who gives the lesson, you'll hear a testimony. And a testimony really is a personal story by someone who has been through recovery. Somebody who has already been through the program. And what a person in this situation will talk about is, what was my life like before I got into recovery? What were my problems? What were my issues? What were my hurts, habits, and hang-ups? How was I dealing with them or not dealing with them? And then how did I get into recovery? And then after that, the person talks about what their life is like after recovery. So these things, these testimonies are very, very powerful, and they're very, very encouraging. And we have lots and lots of people who are willing to come and tell us their testimony. We also have some testimonies on video. Sometimes I'll show one of those because they are also very powerful, and they were shot down at Saddleback Church. How many of you ever heard of Saddleback Church? It's a big church down in Southern California. It's where Celebrate Recovery actually started. They have a huge Celebrate Recovery program down there, and they have a lot of folks who give their testimonies, and some of them are really good, and sometimes we will show one of those. Okay, so that's how these general meetings go. 1 week we have a lesson, following week a testimony. All right. Now, following the general meeting, this first hour meeting from 7 to 8, we will have our small group meetings. And I put a list of the groups in your bulletin. It's on the back page. What I'd like to do now is to take a look at that. Notice the first group there. It says Newcomers 101. That is an orientation class. It's for people who come to Celebrate Recovery for the first time. Now, you don't have to worry about that tonight because you're all getting 101 here tonight. I'm giving you the introductions. Basically, the information that will be communicated in this meeting, I'm giving to you tonight. But this Newcomers is available every week. Next group listed there is multi-issues. We have multi-issue groups for men and multi-issue groups for women. And a multi-issue group is for people who may have more than one issue, and they want to work on all of them at the same time. Or maybe they are not sure which one they want to work on first. And so they'll go to a multi-issue group to figure that out. Then we have dependency groups. We have them for men and we have them for women. Now, dependency groups are for people who have to depend on something to cope with life. A good example is drugs, alcohol, food, spending, sex. And there's some other ones that we can throw in there too, gambling and so on. But these are dependency issues, and people who are struggling with those kinds of issues would go to a dependency group. And as I say, we have them for both men and for women. And then we have codependent groups. Codependent groups for men and codependent groups for women. Now, codependency groups, I should say, are for people who typically try to control other people. They often take responsibility for other people's problems. And they try to solve their problems. And oftentimes they aid and abet dysfunctional people in that process. And finally they reach a point of frustration where they know they can't do anything about somebody else's problems. And so what they do is they develop their own phobias and their own issues. And that could go in all kinds of different directions. Now there's the opposite situation also in codependency where somebody else is trying to control us. A lot of people are in that situation. And so some of the underlying issues are boundaries. We have a hard time setting boundaries. We get into unhealthy relationships. We seem to attract people in an unhealthy relationship style. Anger is a big issue. And low self-esteem also are some of the underlying issues. So you can see that codependency is a big group. You know, there's a lot of things going on in this group, and that's one of the reasons why we have so many of them. All right, then we have a group called Love and Relationship. It's for ladies. And this group is very interesting. It's a mixture of codependency and dependency issues. It focuses on intimate relationships that are basically dysfunctional. It includes things like dating relationships and marriage relationships and other close relationships, perhaps sibling relationships. Anything where there's intimacy involved and the relationship is dysfunctional, this is the place for ladies to go. Now, in addition to these groups for adults, we also have 2 programs for young people. They're listed there. First one that's listed is Celebration Station. And this is for children ages 5 to 11. Now, this children's program, uses the same lessons and the same schedule as the adult program. However, it's written for kids, obviously. Material has been rewritten for them. So the advantage here is that parents and kids can be going through recovery together, each at their own level of understanding, and so they have then the opportunity to talk with each other about these issues. We also have a program called The Landing. This program is for teens. It also uses the same lessons and the same schedule, and it's obviously been rewritten for teens. And it has the same advantages. Parents can communicate with their teens. Now, communicating with teens is very difficult, as you probably know. I raised 5. In fact, there was a time when I had all 5 of my kids were teenagers at the same time. That was sheer insanity. I can tell you. My poor wife, why does she have gray hair or white hair? Anyway, it's a great opportunity for parents and kids to communicate. And so we have these programs available. And then finally, we also offer child care for kids 0 to 4. I don't know about the 0 one. I don't know quite how that one works, but we do have child care. So we really have something for everybody. And you can come with your family. You can participate in a meal. Come to the general meeting. The kids can go to their respective meetings, and then you can go to your group. And then after it's all over with, we offer a time called Solid Rock Cafe. That's from 9 until 10. And that's across the hall where the meal is being served or has been served. We also have Solid Rock Cafe across the hall there. And what happens there is you can go and get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a cold drink and just hang out. It's a really important time because very often in these small group meetings, people will start talking to each other and they'll get into some engrossing kinds of conversations and they want to continue talking. So they'll just go over to Solid Rock Cafe and they'll just continue the dialogue. It's a very, very important part of our program, and we really encourage you to take advantage of it. So that's a thumbnail of Celebrate Recovery. We have a meal, general meeting, small groups, we have kids programs, and we have Solid Rock Cafe. So it goes from 6 o'clock in the evening to 10 o'clock. It's almost like a Friday night event. And as time goes by, I'm sure you'll see how valuable this time will be. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is ask my leaders all to come up and introduce themselves. So, leaders, would you please come up?
Hi. Good evening. I'm JJ, and I'm a co-leader in the Men's Codependency Group. Thank you.
My name is Henry, and I'm the leader for the Codependency Group.
Hi, I'm Carmen. I'm co-leader for Women's Dependency Group.
Hi, I'm Peg, and I'm the leader for the Women's Dependency Group.
Hi, my name is Anne, and I'm the women's leader for love and relationship issues.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm the co-leader for love and relationship issues.
Hi, I'm Sean Hall, and I'm the co-ministry leader. Hi, I'm Marion, and I'm the leader of one of the codependency groups.
Hi, I'm Lenora, and I'm a co-leader with one of the women's codependency groups.
Hi, I'm Fran, and I'm the leader of one of the codependency groups.
Hi, I'm Lady, and I'm a co-leader for the codependency group.
Hi, I'm Rick. I'm the facilitator for the men's dependency group. Thank you.
I'm Terry, and I am a co-facilitator of the men's dependency group.
Hi, I'm Chris. I am lead facilitator of the multi-men's issue group. Thank you.
I'm Charlie, and I'm a assistant leader for codependency.
Hi, I'm Gail. I'm the leader of the multi-issues group.
Wow, that is a hard act to follow. I'm Tammy, and I'm the leader of the 101.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So you can see we have quite a team. And these people have been through recovery many times. They've been working hard on their issues, and they would probably all say, I'm sure they would all say, they haven't recovered completely yet. As I was mentioning earlier, it's a process it's a lifetime process. And so basically what we are what is called wounded healers. We basically are wounded ourselves, and what we do is we reach down and we grab hold of the person, and then we put our hand in the hand of Christ, and we just kind of go along in that way. That's how it works. All right, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to ask you to go to your groups, take a look at this list on the back of your bulletins, and kind of figure out which group you might want to try out. You can try different ones in different weeks. You're not committed to any one particular group. Just try them out as you wish. And some of the locations, you may not know where they are, so we're going to have some hall monitors, some people in the hall. Some of these leaders that you just saw will be there to show you where these rooms are. So thank you very much.